You're listening to part 2 of a Dear Applicants podcast episode. Check out last week's episode to listen to part 1 of this interview. You were talking about sport back in Cambridge.
Yeah.
Wasn't aware that you were sporty.
Sporty. Yeah, I was in the Cambridge University pole sports team.
Yes, we did. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's pole dancing, and it was a sport team. We competed in national competition the year I was there. It was great. I mean, that was my other group of friends. It was just people I met from pole sports. And
how did you get into it?
I started pole dancing at Brown. We have a team called the Brown University Polar Bears. I auditioned in my first year. I'd spent my life doing ballet. Like, I did ballet for 8 years. And then...
Were you a dancer at Brown as well? Or had you taken a bit of a break?
So I kind of... Dancing took like a really back burner thing when I was applying to college because I was just so busy with all this stuff that I couldn't, attend class as much and whatnot. So when I got to Brown, I wanted to audition for a dance team because I was like, I want to pick up on this thing that was so important to me for such a long time. But then I was like, it would be really fun if I did something crazy. And then there were a few dance teams, and some were like contemporary dance, some were along the lines of the styles that I used to really like. And there was just the Polar Bears, and they were like, no experience required, just come to the audition. We'll see. And
you went in for an audition with no experience in dancing.
I had taken like a class, like a beginner class once. Like I had a Groupon. So I had a Groupon. So I took a beginner class, and I was supposed to go with my friend, but she left me, and then I was alone, and I was really scared.
Everyone chickens out of pole dancing.
So I was like, oh my God, okay. But, and I enjoyed that. So that was like also part of why I wanted to audition. So I went to the audition, and I was really freaked out because there were like way more people there than I thought there would be. And I was like, oh, it's such an out there thing. Like, how many people are really going to show up for this audition? Everyone. Like, literally everyone. So I was just standing there with like my number on me. I think it was like 80 something. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get into this team, actually. Like, I was so confident because I had a dance background, and I thought, if they asked us to do, like, freestyle, I can jump around, like, it's fine. And it thankfully did work out for me. I got the callback call. I was so happy, and then I got to the callbacks.
What did you even do?
So they taught you beginner moves in the first audition.
Okay.
And then they saw, like, who had, like, potential and stuff, and if you do have a dance background, you have a bit of an advantage because you can do things, and you can have the lines and pointed toes and all of that technical stuff.
I mean, it requires an enormous amount of strength as well, right? So
but you get a lot of strength in dance. Like, even if you do ballet, you have a lot of core strength.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Well, I'm not a dancer. I have no idea.
So, yeah, and then I went to callbacks, and then I thought I wouldn't make it past callbacks, but I was like, I'm so happy I'm here. But at the end of callbacks, they did this like free dance, and I guess, and I do know that this is the way that they end up picking because in the future years I was the one
doing the
yeah. So and the free dance is basically you take the moves that you learned in the auditions, and they put like 15 people on stage. There are 2 poles, and then you try and find a time for you to be on the pole. Other time you spend on the floor,
so
just
like
kind of
pole
freestyling.
Battle.
It's kind of like a pole battle, and you spend all the time on the floor, like freestyling. And they played Britney Spears' Toxic. Like, I blacked out. I don't know what I did, but it got me on the team. I cannot remember what I did. And then in the next
Toxic just took over you.
In the next year, when I was like in the team and we were like thinking of auditions next year, someone was like, "Oh, do you want to watch your video?" And I was like, "Please do not show me my video."
You've never seen it?
No, I don't want to see it. I would like that to remain ephemeral. Yeah.
Somewhere out there is the video of Divya's pole battle.
Completely freaking out.
To Britney Spears' Toxic.
Yep.
And so did you guys compete? Did the polar players compete?
No, we were a
internal
performance
thing?
team. So we performed at Brown a lot. We would have like a spring show and a fall show. And the spring show was like a production. So we'd have like, multiple bowls and multiple people on stage at the same time. It was just like a really fun thing to do. But it does consume your life when you join a team like that because like, it's such a small group of people and then you get so close and then you're rehearsing like 3-4 hours a time and like 3 times a week. So it's like you get really into it. And I loved it. It was such a big part of my college experience. But then when I went to Cambridge and Oxford too as well, when I was on my year abroad, both those schools, because the UK has a really well-developed university pole scene. And they have competitions, and they have like almost every school seems to have a pole dancing society. Like UCL, all the London ones, you name it. There's like London pole varsity. There's Oxford versus Cambridge pole varsity. So there's so much to do pole wise. So when I got to the UK, I competed even on my year abroad for the Oxford team, and it was my first time.
So it was only in the UK that was more competitive.
Yeah, that was my first time ever competing, and it was terrifying. I got third in the regionals in 2 categories. I got the semi-pro.
There are multiple categories?
Yeah, so there's beginner, intermediate, advanced. So it's by level. So you can compete as a beginner, and that means you're like, there's only some moves you can do. So every level, it's
Okay.
There's beginner, intermediate, advanced, then semi-pro, and then group. So in my first time, I competed semi-pro and also group.
What does group look like?
Group is like 3 or 4 people or more on stage.
At the same time?
Yes.
Oh.
You can put like multiple people on a pole. It's crazy.
So wait, with one pole?
Yeah, you can do that. You can do like triple strikes.
Oh, I was imagining tricks. 4 poles. Okay, so it's like 4 people, 3 or 4 people.
There were 3 poles on the stage as well.
But you could
put everyone on one pole, and you could do
at that point it's more of a routine type thing?
Yeah, so you're like doing choreography, and it's more like...
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was fun. And then I competed for the enemy 2 years later when I was at Cambridge, and I competed on the Cambridge team.
Traitor.
Yeah, and actually in my first year, the Cambridge team, their semi-pro competitor had beat me. And then I was their semi-pro competitor 2 years later.
And so the competitive element, was it something that, because it was just part of the ecosystem around you, or was this something that you had been interested in when you were at Brown as well?
I think it was more the ecosystem. I think that once I competed, I started enjoying competing, and it made me want to compete more. But I think it just wasn't something I thought about when I was just doing it as part of a performance team. Because it's just like a fun time when you do it as a fun, like part of a performance team. It's like on campus clout, you're just like, you're just performing.
You walk past everyone like, that's the pole dancing team.
Not like that, but people would be like, oh, I saw you at your show, like that was cool kind of vibes. And then when you go into more of a competitive vibe, it's like people from your school, like Oxford and Cambridge, aren't even there, like, no, because you're traveling somewhere to compete. So it's not even like you have the same energy and aura of like, oh, I'm just like performing for my community. It's more like I'm representing this community that sometimes like a lot of people at Cambridge and Oxford didn't know that the team existed. So it was like, I'm representing this community that don't really know that they're being represented in this sport right now. So it was like a very different energy. I did miss the performance aspect of pole. I missed like performing for like all my friends, and they'd all be there. And one of our performances was always at a bar called The Dark Lady in Providence. So my friends would go there, they get their drinks. This is back when you were still at Providence. Yeah, they'd go there, they get their drinks, and it would just be this like amazing time, and like everyone I know would come for my show and whatnot. So then when I was at Cambridge, and then I would go and perform, and I'd come back and only like 2 people had seen me because they had to go to London. It was really like, I just miss like sharing that with my friends. And yeah, so I did miss that aspect of it, but I really enjoyed competing, not because of the competitive aspect of it, but because you got to meet so many people from like different schools, different teams, and like just see different routines, which was really nice.
I guess they've all had their own journey.
Yeah.
That led them to pole dancing as well. Were most people formally dancers, or were there people that just got into it because it looked cool and ended up sticking with it?
There are a lot of people who joined as absolute beginners. Oh, okay. And there's some people who like had gymnastics backgrounds or dance backgrounds. So yeah, so it's like a really mixed bag. I think with pole, it's like, it's such a new sport in being considered as such, that it attracts like such a wide range of people. And I found that the UK pole scene was just really supportive and friendly.
It's a fun party trick as well. There's a pole at the party, I suppose.
Yeah. It's a very specific party trick. Yeah. And it requires a very specific party.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Before we continue, I would like to take a quick break to remind you to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us improve and to reach a wider audience to provide further insight into this arduous journey. Also, if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to email us at our email linked in the description below. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, so at Brown, you were telling us a little bit earlier that you went from having that, anxiety, the sort of nerve-filled experience of the, what do you call it, audition, and then in later years you went on to adjudicate, right? You went on
Yeah.
to sort of select different prospective members of the team. Do you now teach or train as well?
Yeah, so I was an instructor at Cambridge. So I taught classes. I've taught kind of a smattering of full classes, and
In Cambridge or here?
in Cambridge.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I am a pole instructor technically, I guess, because I've done that.
Do you have to do like a certification and stuff?
There is a certification course. I didn't do it before I taught, but I do intend to do it eventually so that I can start teaching at like studios all over. Because yeah, I enjoy teaching.
And so what's the last year look like? Because you finished with Cambridge in 22, right? So a year after Brown. I'm asking this question in relation to both pole as well as just life in general.
Yeah.
I know that you've been traveling a bit. Obviously, you've just completed the first draft of your very first novel.
Yeah.
What else has been going on?
So, I mean, the novel has taken up a lot of time. I moved to New Zealand after I finished my master's because my parents were living there. So, and I hadn't actually seen them for 2 years in the pandemic. Because New Zealand
so you
was
went straight from Providence to...
Yeah.
What, Providence? Yeah. You went straight from Brown to Cambridge, right?
Yeah.
Oh, during COVID. So you never came home during COVID?
New Zealand was shut to visitors.
Oh, okay, they were already there.
And I was on a visitor visa even though my parents lived there. So I was stuck kind of outside and I didn't see them for 2 years. So after I finished at Cambridge, I had this kind of year off vibe. So I was like, I will come and visit. I will stay in New Zealand. A few of my friends from Cambridge, well, one of my friends from Cambridge and one that I met in Oxford came to visit me and we did kind of a road trip, which was fun. And so I think I've just been there. I've done like smatterings of odd jobs. Obviously, I've been pole dancing because we have a pole in our house in New Zealand. And yeah, like it's been a very relaxing year. My year of rest and relaxation, but not actually because that book is actually quite harrowing.
Any advice for people that are sort of following in your footsteps, whether it's trying out something that's new, something like pole, or I guess the rare human being here and there who isn't interested in banking and finance and is more interested in writing something or creating something for themselves? Because I mean, it's pretty daunting, right? Especially, I mean, you grew up in Singapore with Singaporean parents.
Yeah.
Not sure if writing a novel is something they encourage you to do from a young age, although I'm sure yours might have.
It's not something they envisioned, I don't think. I think that pursuing something creative when you're from certain environments, it can be very difficult and it can be very discouraging at times. I think when there isn't a precedent for doing something, there aren't that many people to look up to who've done the same thing. It can feel like you're jumping into a void, really. And I think that I still sometimes get into the existential angst of it, of wondering like, what really am I doing? And how can I justify that I've chosen this when there are so many more stable options out there? But at the same time, I think that someone needs to want to pursue these things because we do need art and we do need literature and we do need people who are passionate about those things, passionate enough to pursue them in a serious way. I'm lucky in the sense that although it's not what my parents envisioned, once they started reading my writing and getting a sense of what I was doing, they've become a lot more supportive of it. They've become very, very on my side in that sense. And yeah, so I think... But I also know that not everyone has access to parents like that, you know? So I think that it's hard to give advice in a blanket way just because everyone's situation is so different and different people do what they have to do to make it even if they have a creative passion. But I think the one thing I would say is just that, like, I don't think any year is wasted. It's very easy to get angry with yourself or worried, especially when you're not producing as much creatively, but at the same time, you're not doing anything like banking or finance. You're not doing something that's like respectable, so to speak.
Management consultant.
And then there's moments where you can feel like really trapped and lost, and kind of alone as well, because not only is it difficult to pursue creative things, it's also very slow. You have to write the thing, you have to make the art, you have to do all these things before you can even get the validation that you need to, to show other people and say, oh, look, it's respectable. And it can feel like you're wasting time. It can feel like, everyone else in your life is moving ahead with theirs, but you're kind of stuck in this place with this project that you haven't finished yet. But yeah, I think that one thing I learned this year that has been, we spoke when we were talking about my Common App essay about empty time and idle time. And it's been a year of a lot of idle time for me. But I don't think I've wasted anything, because I've learned so much and I've spent so much time in reflection. I've spent so much time writing, and even just thinking about writing can count as writing. Even just thinking about what you want to do can count as something. So I think that knowing that you're not wasting your time, if you're figuring things out, you're not necessarily wasting your time. And yeah, just also like, some jobs seem realer than others, but in the grand scheme of the universe, there's no such thing as a real job. We're on a rock floating around, do what you want, basically.
And so as we continue living on this rock, floating in the middle of water, where is life going to take you from here?
I'm going to be in the UK next year. Because I still have a year left on my graduate visa.
Living the London dream.
Yes, living the London dream. I have some pole teaching gigs lined up there. I have some.
Well, you're planning way ahead.
Yeah.
So you've used that idle time.
I've used that idle time. I've laid some groundwork. Obviously I tutor here and there. I work here at IvyPrep. So. Yeah, lest we forget, indeed. So I have things that I do, but the focus is to finish the novel, and the focus is to get it represented. Do you have a timeline?
I mean, not to pressure you, but is there a timeline for it? I'm more asking because so we can read it.
Oh,
not so people know when. So people know when your novel's coming out.
Well, it's a slow business, as I've said. Yeah. So even when you get an agent, the novel spends some time with the agent where you're talking about it with your agent, and you're editing it again. Spend some time doing that, then you get an editor, you edit it again. So you'll really get version 70 of the novel by the time it gets out. So it's probably 2 or 3 years down the line at best.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's...
And are you going to start working on new projects in the meantime?
Yeah, I have other short stories that I've sent out into the world that are looking for a home right now. So hopefully...
Are they on your website?
They're not yet. So hopefully... slowly things will pop up, and then they'll be on my website. So,
Oh, we can't wait. I'm sure the audience can't wait either. But thank you so much. We are going to keep our fingers crossed for your novel and for your burgeoning literary career, as should all of you. But thank you so much for your time today, Divya, for the second time. Really, really appreciated it. And thank you, everybody, for dialing in. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day. That's all for today's episode of Dear Applicants. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you found the content valuable and insightful. If you'd like to learn more about our guests or the topics we discussed, be sure to check out our show notes for links and further resources.